Good morning, everyone, and thank you to the viewing public for joining today's House Standing Committee on.
We're going live because you're saying
Yeah,
we need to underscore. No, that's good. So we're live on YouTube. Oh, we're live on YouTube. Okay. I thought we're going live cable.
yeah. I guess there's a lot of things. Okay, got it. So, thank you to the viewing public who are joining us via YouTube for attending the House Standing Committee on Judiciary and Governmental Operations. I'd like to also thank and acknowledge the presence of our LAs, Mr. Nick Reboloman and Miss Claire Sablon. Sorry, Miss Claire, I almost said Chong. Miss Claire Sablon, our legal counsel Joe, and also present in the chamber but is in working on some documents is Attorney Joe Callahan. Right now, can I ask the LA Claire to please call the roll?
Test. Vicente C. Camacho. Rep. Manny T. Castro.
Stiga.
Rep. John Paul P. Sablon.
Stiga.
Rep. Ralph N. Yumo.
Present.
Rep. Malcolm J. Omar. Rep. Vincent S. Saudon.
Here.
Rep. Blas Jonathan T. Apto. Rep. Joel C. Camacho.
Presente.
Rep. Marissa R. Flores.
Present.
Chairwoman, we have 6 members present.
Thank you, Ms. Claire. With 6 members present, that constitutes a quorum. At this time, I'd like to get a motion to adopt today's agenda.
So move.
There's been a motion to adopt today's agenda. It's been seconded. All those in favor say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Today's agenda is now adopted. Right now, we'd like to open the floor for public comments. The public comments portion of this committee meeting is now open. Seeing that there's none, we now move along to old business. And the first item of agenda is House Local Initiative 23-0. House Legislative Initiative 23-01 to amend Article 3, Section 11 of the CNMI Constitution to require public corporations and autonomous agencies to hire private counsel and for other purposes. At this time, I'd like to recognize Representative JP Sablan.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. And as discussed before we call this committee meeting into order, that I like to make the recommendation and suggestion that we conduct a public hearing for this House Legislative Initiative 23-01 on all senatorial district. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you, Rep. Sablan, and I do agree with your recommendation. Can I get a motion to have House Legislative Initiative 2301 to be held in all senatorial districts prior to passing this legislative initiative? There's been a motion and it's been seconded. All those in favor say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. LAs, please take note that this local initiative would have to be scheduled for public hearing in all senatorial districts. The next item on agenda is House Bill 23-64 to authorize local inmates in the CNMI Department of Corrections to be paid for the work they perform while in prison. At this time, I'd like to recognize Representative Castro.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I'd like to offer a floor amendment to House Bill 2364 to substitute House Bill 2364 with House Bill 23-64, House Substitute 1 in its entirety to read. Yeah, thank you.
There's been a motion that's on the table for the amendment and submission of 23-64 Substitute 1 to authorize local inmates in the CNMI Department of Corrections to be paid for the work they perform while in prison. It's been seconded. All those in favor say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. With that being said, we're going back to the main motion to accept House Bill 2364 Substitute 1 in its entirety to authorize local inmates in the CNMI Department of Corrections to be paid for the work they perform while in prison. I recognize Representative Sablan.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. This time, I like to make a motion that we pass House Bill 23-64 in the form of House Substitute 1, and that the committee formulates its committee report and report to the full body. So move.
There's been a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, motion carries. Ms. Claire and Mr. Nick, if you can prepare the committee report to reflect that House Bill 23-64 HS Substitute 1 for submission for the next session. Okay, thank you. Moving right along, we have House Bill 23-86 to modernize the crime of burglary and punishment ranges. Being that this is my bill, I would really like to offer to this committee that we pass this legislation. As we can see in every day, the newspaper, there's all kinds of crime happening, burglary happening. This bill is intended to at least simplify the language and modernize the offenses to reflect the need for this passage. The penal code obviously needs to be modernized, and with this legislation, at least it gives some range to the court to address this type of offense. There has been comments by MVA who obviously their first mission is to protect the safety of the tourism industry and those that travel from abroad to come to the CNMI. There has been records and data that shows that when they come here, there is acts of vandalism to rent-a-cars, and they have been burglarized when coming to visit the CNMI. There has been public defender comments as well, and we have considered these amendments and not the amendments, I'm sorry. We've considered their comments, and I ask that this legislation be passed in its original form. But I open that and I leave that to this committee. So right now, I'd like to open the floor for discussion, if any. Being that there's none, I'd like to recognize Representative Sablan.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and I like to state for the record that I'm in full support of House Bill 23-86 to modernize the crime of burglary and the punishment ranges. Therefore, at this time, I make a motion that we pass House Bill 2386 and that this august body formulates a committee report to be submitted to the full body of the House. So move.
There's been a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, motion carries. Moving right along to House Bill 23107 to repeal the salaries of the Commission of the Commonwealth, to repeal the salaries of the commissioners of the Commonwealth Casino Commission and the CNMI Cannabis Commission, and to require that these commissioners receive compensation in accordance with 1 CMC 8247. I'd like to open the floor for discussion to the August body. Recognize Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And speaking with the chairperson or Chairman Dago Komatsu on this piece of legislation, he had recommended that we strike out the CNMI Cannabis Commission as their salaries will be no longer funded under the general fund. So I would like to propose an amendment to remove the Cannabis Commission from this piece of legislation and only to reflect the Casino Commission. in the form of House Draft 1. So motion to,
Second.
There's been a motion on the floor for the amendment to strike out the Cannabis Commission and for this House Bill 23107 to reflect only the Commonwealth Casino Commission. And it's been seconded. All those in favor say aye.
aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Back to the main motion.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move that we adopt House Bill 23-107 as amended in the form of House Draft 1. So move.
Second.
It's been seconded, but before we take the vote on that, Rep. Sablan, can we, the legal counsel had raised his hand, recognize legal counsel. Short recess, please. Thank you, and we apologize for that short recess. Recognize, sorry, before I recognize the vice chair, there is a standing motion. It's been seconded. Discussion.
Ready.
Ready? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Moving right along. Oh, I'm sorry. Before we move along, can we go ahead and recognize the vice chair, please, for the motion on the committee report, if there's any. Thank you. Moving right along, House Bill number 23108 to provide the public auditor with the power and the duty to establish, develop, and implement a training program on ethics and related matters for all government employees and public officials of the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. Recognize Representative Aldon.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I would like to have. Thank you, Chairwoman. I would like to motion to pass, House Bill 23108 as, as it stands.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor to accept House Bill 23108 in its entirety. It's been seconded. Discussion. Recognize Rep. Aldon.
So I just want to make sure that, are we live on this? We are? Oh, on the YouTube. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that the viewing public understands why this bill is so important. When we hear, I mean, there was a public or a comment that we received from OPA, right, that says that this thing is not needed because they're already doing it. The fact that it's not mandatory is an issue. This needs to be mandatory for all government employees, right? And the reason why it needs to be mandatory is so that the training must be done. There's no ands ifs about it. The reason why we're in this economic predicament that we're in, I mean, it's not just a global issue with the global crisis and economic wise, but locally, we in the government have issues with corruption. And if the government employees, be it appointed or not, is not mandated to have ethics training, then technically they don't really know what is their rights under the regulation. And at the same time, they don't understand what their true responsibilities are to the public. Because every government employee, be it, appointed or not, has the responsibility, to protect, the people. The government's job is to serve the public, not the other way around. And the government is not an institution for self-enrichment. Okay, with a lot of this corruption and nepotism and kickbacks that we're hearing from government employees, but yet they don't want to come out and speak up because they don't really understand their rights and their responsibility to stand up and speak out. So therefore, this bill needs to be mandatory across the board on every level of government. People need to be held accountable, and we need to stop this harassment, of junior employees by supervisor or upper management. And we need to protect all of these employees that would be, and I hope so, that they become whistleblowers to protect themselves as well from retaliation. So that's the reason why this bill, has to be, passed the way it is and hold every department, or corporations, autonomous, semi-autonomous or not, responsible and have this documented and be part of every employee's employment record. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Aldon. Any further discussions? Recognize Rep. Castro.
I just wanted to commend Rep. Aldon on regarding this House Bill 23-108. And I also want to say a thank you to Mr. Mike Sablon, who was the former public auditor and kind of like gave a good presentation when I was working at NMC about the ethics law. And so this legislation is really important because the ethics law is pretty much, it's really strict. And it's also a law that may need to be evaluated again. But government employees, some of them might not even know that they're breaking the law because there's not enough outreach out there. And the more people that we educate about the importance of ethics and proper public service, the better it's going to be. We're going to have uh, more efficient system, and then everyone's playing by a level playing field. So thank you also to Ashley Koss from the public auditor's office. She was one of the people that came out to the legislature and NMC. But this is very valuable information that most of our government employees need to take part in and be aware, so that we can help make sure that we don't face a lot of the challenges that we're facing now. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Castro. Any further discussion? Recognize Representative Aldon.
I just wanted to give an example of why this is important. So a lot of government employees, or technically, the federal government considers the CNMI as a poverty wage region, right? The wages that we receive are very low compared to our counterpart in Guam or mainland U.S. Now, when there is corruption, right, and money is involved, and it gets diverted into all of these, crazy, kickbacks and favoritism on these funding, that money, okay, could have been saved to provide, higher wages. So as long as, corruption keeps rearing its head and the people that see it don't speak up, then guess what? You are part of the problem, and you cannot complain that your salary is low because you're not doing anything about it, to fight this corruption that's just very systemic in the CNMI. You guys, if the public wants a better, financial situation, then they have to watch every penny that comes in, and it's spent the correct way. We, the CNMI government and the public at large, they lose millions and millions of dollars every day through corruption. And it's money that we do not have. But it definitely does benefit the few and the corrupt. So if you want a better standard of living, with a higher salary, then, I call on to the public, to report all of those things. You could be anonymous. All we need is record. Provide us with the record so we could do oversight, so we could stop all of this, so that we could have a better standard of living. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Aldon. And yes, I would have to agree with both sentiments by both representatives. At this time, any further discussions on the legislation, House Legislation 23108? Ready? There has been a motion to accept House Bill 23108 in its entirety. It's been seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Moving along to new business. Letter A, House Bill 23112 to establish the Office of Financial Integrity and Compliance, OFIC, and the OFIC Oversight Committee to improve the CNMI government's financial management and reporting. If the committee would allow me some time to give a brief history as to this legislation that I introduced in the last, thank you, Rep. Sablon. Now I'm nervous to talk about it a little bit. Anyway, thank you, Rep Sablon. And if you just indulge and enlighten me for a couple minutes, I think it's important because it does have some connection with the previous bill that was introduced and obviously supported by this committee, which is 23108. And let me just give some history. This act shall be known as the CNMI Financial Integrity and Compliance Act. The CNMI government undergoes regular audits conducted annually by independent auditors. These audits aim to assess the accuracy and completeness of the government's financial statements and ensures compliance with relevant accounting standards and evaluate the effectiveness of financial management practices. The audit for the year ended September 30, 2020, which is the latest audit report available, highlighted several critical areas of the CNMI government's finances that need to be improved. The audit revealed several issues indicating the financial mismanagement. Notably, there were disclaimers of opinions on governmental activities, general fund, grant assistance governmental fund, coronavirus relief governmental fund, and Saipan amusement governmental fund due to significant deficiencies in financial reporting and compliance with accounting standards. For example, according to the fiscal year 2020 audit, the CNMI government failed to meet Governmental Accounting Standards Board, GSAB statement number 68 due to not meeting certain financial reporting requirements, such as recording change related to net pension asset or liability. Additionally, inadequate accounting records led to insufficient audit evidence for balances and financial activities related to advances, general receivables, other liabilities and accruals, and other revenue and expenditures. The audit also issued adverse opinions for the aggregate remaining fund information and aggregate discretely presented component units because of the financial statements that did not include, which is very important, the Commonwealth Healthcare Corporation and the Northern Marianas Settlement Fund. Furthermore, the audit found that the CNMI was non-compliant with Sections 4 and 9 of the Interim Pension Obligation Board Credit Agreement. The OPA conducts external audits of all government entities, including performance audits, financial audits, and compliance audits. Additionally, the OPA investigates instances of fraud, waste, and abuse within government operation. The office provides recommendations to improve government operations and financial practices and ensures accountability, efficiency, and effectiveness in the use of public resources. The Office of Public Auditor reports its audit findings to the public, the legislature, and the relevant stakeholders. But the legislature finds that because OPA operates at an external and independent audit level, there is a need for the establishment of a government office that will address matters on operational and strategic levels, focusing on internal compliance and financial management practices. Thus, this legislation establishes both the Office of Financial Integrity and Compliance, OFIC, within the Department of Finance and the OFIC Oversight Committee, OOC. This primary responsibility includes developing and implementing robust internal control systems, monitoring and enforcing compliance with GSAB standards, conducting regular internal audits, and providing training and support to financial management personnel. So again, this piece of legislation is crucial. As we know, we still don't know how much is left in ARPA. Both the Senate and the House can agree on that we still don't know what is the remaining balance of ARPA funds. And because the Secretary of Finance is also under the executive branch, it is incumbent and it is only right that we establish this board so that there is a check and balance. And I ask this committee to approve this legislation And at this time, I'd like to open the floor for any discussions or any motions or any amendments offered for this piece of legislation. Thank you. Recognize Representative Camacho.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'd like to offer a floor amendment or an amendment to the bill to read as follows. So after Section 2 of the bill, if you're if you have the bill before you right now,
Yeah. 112.
so after Section 2 of the bill, to insert a new Section 3 to read as follows. Section 3 Amendment. The legislature finds that 1 CMC subsection 7849 could potentially be interpreted as criminalizing the sharing of information between OPA and OFIC, because such interpretation would defeat the purpose of authorizing collaboration between OPA and OFIC. 1 CMC subsection 7849 Section 7849 is hereby amended to read as follows. 1 CMC Section 7849, Secrecy of Records. Penalty for violation. All records of the public auditor shall be confidential unless it is deemed necessary for the public auditor to make the records public in the performance of his or her duties. And then the insertion would be, notwithstanding the foregoing, the public auditor may share records with the Office of Financial Integrity and Compliance, provided the sharing of records does not directly affect an ongoing investigation being conducted by the public auditor. And violations relative to the secrecy of proceedings by the public auditor or any member of the public auditor staff shall be punished by imprisonment for not more than 6 months or by a fine of not more than $1,000. Consistent with the intent of the foregoing amendments, I hereby move to allow the legal counsel, together with the House Clerk, to make further non-substantive technical amendments that are strictly necessary to effectuate the intent of this floor amendment prior to transmittal. The legal sufficiency signature of House Legislative Council containing the final engrossed version of the bill shall reflect the signature of the Council endorsing the last amendment, if any, addressed by the House. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. The motion has been made. It's been seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. And back to the main motion. Recognize Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I'd like to now offer or suggest that we conduct or produce a committee report for passage of House Bill 23-112, House Draft 1.
There's been a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Vice Chair. Moving right along, House Bill 23118 to establish a Fire Reserve Corps, CNMI FRC, a Fire and Emergency Medical Services Reserve Corps to assist the Department of Fire and Emergency Medical Services, DFEMs, and the Commonwealth Ports Authority, Aircraft Rescue and Firefighting, CPA ARFF, in fire prevention and suppression, rescue operations, basic and advanced life support, and for other purposes. Recognize Representative Sablan.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. And I would like to state for the record my full support of House Bill 23-118. And therefore, at this time, I make a motion that we adopt and pass House Bill 23-118 in its original form and in its entirety, and that we formulate a committee report for the full body of the House to take action. So move.
There's been a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Rep. Sablan. Moving right along, House Bill 23119 to amend the statutes regarding the recusal of judges and justices and to provide penalties for noncompliance and for other purposes. if the committee, um, if council could please put the bill at this time. This was a bill that I introduced, and if the committee has no objections, I'd like to ask that you take a look at the monitor, as I would like to offer an amendment to this bill. And as you can see, I'd like to offer an amendment, House Bill 23119 HS1, to amend the statutes regarding the recusal of judges and justices and to provide penalties for noncompliance and for other purposes. I'd like to ask that this committee go to page 2, please. And the amendments there are on page 2, line item 10 to 21. At this time, I'd like to ask legal counsel to please go through the amendments that I'd like to offer. And the genesis and the main reason why I would like to offer this bill is because right now there is nothing in the books that says that a judge or a justice has to provide any description on the recusal order. And I would just like that, just as any branch has to be transparent, I think the judges also should be transparent, as they are also elected officials by the people of the Commonwealth. Recognize legal counsel. Joe, please take us through this process.
So on page 2, starting with line 10, in the findings, we basically state that we're going to amend 1 CMC 3309 with respect to the disqualification procedure. This legislation will now require the courts to promulgate rules that clarify that a recusal order that lacks details is reversible upon review. The reviewing judge or justice must expressly examine the underlying factual basis for the recusal order and find that there is sufficient factual basis for upholding the order. In addition, the court shall require the recusing judge, I should add, or justice, to file a detailed affidavit in support of the order of recusal. The need for details also applies to an order granting or denying recusal. Lastly, because the public would be better served if the judiciary identified local qualified retired judges or attorneys to serve as pro tem jurists, the court shall appoint local attorneys on a pro tem basis and exhaust the local pool of qualified attorneys before resorting to appointing a judge or justice from off island. These changes in the findings are reflected by the dark underline in section page 7, I believe. Yeah, page 7. So on page 7, there's going to be a new section C and section D to the statute, which is codified at 3309. So the amendment to this particular draft will be to add a section C and a section D. So the new section C will read, with respect to an order of recusal, the judge or justice who reviews the order for reasonable and adequate factual or legal basis must expressly examine the underlying factual basis for the recusal order and find that there is a sufficient factual basis for upholding the order. A recusing judge or justice shall file a detailed affidavit in support of the order of recusal. An order granting or denying a motion to disqualify or recuse the judge or justice shall be supported by detailed factual basis. An order lacking this detailed factual basis is reversible upon review. And then lastly, the new subsection D, the Superior Court and Supreme Court shall establish a pool of locally qualified retired judges or attorneys competent to serve on a pro tempore basis and shall exhaust said local pool of qualified attorneys before resorting to appointing a judge or justice from off island. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel.
Madam Chair,
And
Madam Chair, if I may.
Sorry,
Joe.
excuse me, recognize
My apologies.
Vice
Uh,
Chair.
Council, can you, instead of bolding it, can you do a double underline? It's kind of confusing. Okay, thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Vice Chair, for pointing that. I think that's very important. Um, and with that said, and thank you, legal, for making that adjustment for the double underline so that it is easily understood, and that the changes are easily identified. Um, so with that change, as we know, reps, that we do have pro temp judges that sit on the Supreme Court and the Superior Court, and they are more than qualified. Which is why that some of these amendments were made, because we have capable attorneys, and we should exhaust all our local pool of attorneys prior to. So if I could ask this committee to please um, accept the changes as I offer them on House Bill 23119, House Substitute 1. There's been a motion, it's been seconded. Any discussion? There has been a motion, it's been seconded. All those in favor say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Back to the main motion. At this time, I'd like to ask if I can get a motion to adopt and accept House Bill 23119, House Substitute 1. So move. Somebody. Oh. It's been seconded. All those in favor say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. I'd like to apologize for that. I got kind of confused. It's not normal for me to introduce a bill, make the substitute, and then ask for a motion. So I apologize to the general public, and thank you, colleagues, for redirecting me to clarify that. At this time, we move to Section D of the agenda, Executive Order 2024-008, Transfer of Responsibility for the Administration and Operation of Parole from the Board of Parole into the Department of Corrections. Discussion. Recognize Vice Chair.
Madam Chair, I motion that the committee moves in accepting the executive order.
There's been a motion to accept Executive Order number 2024-008. It's been seconded. All those in favor say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. This committee has accepted and approved Executive Order 2024-008. LAs and legal, if there is anything that this committee needs to do to ensure that this is being sent over to the governor, please let us know. Otherwise, we move to the next item of agenda, item 6, miscellaneous. There's nothing on miscellaneous. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
There's been a motion to adjourn. It's been seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time.